Well, I think we will get started here and people can join in as needed. But welcome to tonight's webinar, everyone. My name is Marta and I'm an admissions coach with the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And today we will be covering the Pharmaceutical Sciences professional programs, specifically the Psychoactive Pharmaceutical Investigation Program, and focusing on the career outlook. So today's agenda, we'll cover introductions, we'll go through the program overview, also career breakdown, including program support, internship and research options, as well as outcomes and potential career paths, and any student internship insight. The next steps and questions will come at the very end. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and hold off until the very end, and then you can ask them in an open Q&A. And from there, I will hand it over to Chris.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris McIntyre. My official title is Employer Liaison for the PPI and the ADD program, MS in the School of Pharmacy, Master's in Professional Programs. And so what that means is I basically have two responsibilities. The first and the major responsibility is all things employer engagement. So I work with employers to hire students, whether that's creating internships, full-time roles, any other recruiting events that may pop up. And the second piece of what I do is help with all things career development with the students. So that could be things like, and I'll talk to this in a few slides, but specifically helping you figure out where you want to go with this degree, kind of what's out there, applying for jobs, resumes, everything you think of when you think of the word career in the PPI program is usually where I come into play. And again, both from the employer side of things, but also from the student side of things. So first, briefly, I'm going to give just a quick overview about our degree options in the Psychoactive Pharmaceutical Investigation, which I'll call PPI from now on in our programs. And as you can see from the slide, we have two different degree options for students to consider taking. We have our graduate capstone certificate, which is 7 courses, and our Master's of Science in Pharmaceutical Sciences degree, which is 14 courses. And as you can see in the graph, our capstone certificate is nested within our MS program. So students who may want to dip their toes into the water or maybe not quite meet eligibility requirements for the MS degree can apply for the certificate with the intention to eventually move on into the MS. So students will take the capstone certificate, take the 7 courses and 12 credits, and then directly move on to the MS. And I will say the majority, at least anecdotally, of students that I've worked with in the certificate program decide to move right on to the MS program. I think that's also a testament to our program and the knowledge that they gain, that they decide to continue on after they get their capstone certificate. The other thing I'll note is that our curriculum is updated each year to stay relevant in the field. So this is kind of a current visual of our curriculum, but this can change year to year. And that actually is an advantage to our program. I've worked in a lot of programs in my career in higher ed, and the flexibility we have to update curriculum to the needs of the field to make sure that we're producing competitive graduates in the job market is unparalleled in a lot of programs that you will find. So I think that is quite a bit of an advantage as we make sure to kind of be fluid with what's needed in the market. The other thing I'd like to spend just a brief slide on is thinking about career advancement. So it's really important to us as a program is that we provide students a variety of skill building within our curriculum. So if you think about physical lab and technical skills, such as data analysis, knowledge of the drug development process, and experimental techniques, to more of the 21st century skills or words you've maybe heard before, whether it's soft skills or transferable skills. Those communication, critical thinking, leadership, problem solving, hugely vital skills that employers want, but sometimes students don't graduate with that grouping of skills. So we want to make sure in the program you don't just get those technical skills that are vital to succeed, but also you get some of those transferable skills that employers want and look for in candidates, and you're able to express them on your resume through opportunities of engagement with employers, through when they graduate. So that way they're able to succeed not just in the technical side of the house, they're also able to be good coworkers. They're able to adapt and they're able to have some of those skills that employers are hugely looking for, especially with this current generation of graduates. I also want to note on the very far right side, you notice the number 9 pharmacy school. We're proud of the fact that we're a highly ranked school of pharmacy and we intentionally include industry professionals in our faculty base. I mentioned a little bit earlier about the flexibility we have in our curriculum, that versatility and flexibility to meet students where they're at, with the ability to control how many courses you can take each semester, and your modality, which means either fully online or hybrid if you're near or surrounding in the Madison area. We also have high touch advising and opportunities, and that includes both career advising, which is what I do, but also academic advisors dedicated to make sure you're on the right track. And I make sure that I support in your career development, which I'm going to move on to in the next couple slides. So first, before I get into our pillars of success for career development and what we offer, I also want to take a moment to step back to think about what our ultimate goals are within the PPI program. What we hope to do is to develop leaders to make change happen and walk the walk. As you can see from the slide, these are just a few examples of what our students have been working on and how the field is growing and developing in the US and globally. And real quick, from left to right, we kind of organized this in the way at the very far left is the students and alums of the PPI program's efforts. You can see some of the work that they're doing, whether it's talks, whether it's research. And then as you move to the right in the middle, that's Dr. Wenther and the broader UW effort. So if you think about Tammy Baldwin's visit to campus, but also the very middle, the psychedelic science in Denver, we had a big gathering. We had a table in Denver, but we also had a big gathering where current students and alums all gathered to have a really great time and to share knowledge and learn about what's going on in the psychedelic space globally. And then the very far right, you'll see a little bit about Wisconsin and global updates on the growth of this field. And this is changing rapidly. We all know this is a industry that moves pretty quickly. So it's exciting in the sense that there's always something new to be involved with, and there's always something new to learn. And we want to give you those opportunities to succeed. So by the time you're ready to graduate, you'll be ready to hit the ground running in your career. So next, I'm going to spend the rest of the time talking a little bit about what we do as career developers in the PPI program. And when I think about career development, I think about it in tier. I'm a visual learner, so mapping it out like this really kind of helps me explain and articulate what we offer. And I really think about it in three levels: curricular, program, and individual. And each of these three levels are important because each give you specific tools and skills to succeed in your job search. You'll have opportunities to stay up to date with your courses, engage with your employers through the program, and have an individual strategy based on your unique situation. So if we start from the very top at the curricular level, this ensures that your classes prepare you for your career. Through partnering with employers and leading instructors in the field, we ensure you're learning those relevant skills in demand that I referenced earlier, whether they're technical skills or those 21st century transferable skills. We bring in employers for course feedback, and we make sure that the courses are in line with what employers look for. So by the time you graduate, you're able to succeed. If we move to the second level, the program level, that includes opportunities cultivated for PPI students, things like employers seeking resume and packets of resumes, hosting networking events, whether they're on site or on campus, as well as career development workshops that I host to prepare you for the job search. I do want to note real quick the very top bullet point. You're probably interested in the summer internship program. That's something I'm finalizing right now. These are opportunities cultivated exclusively for the PPI students in our program. This gives you an opportunity to explore roles within the industry, and naturally this changes from year to year depending on who's hiring, depending on the market, and just depending on how the greater landscape looks. But it's a unique opportunity because it's really unheard of in this line to have a unique internship program just dedicated to one specific major. Finally, if we go down to, last thing I should say, the UW-Madison Symposium, that's also under the program level. Once a year, usually around early November, we have a symposium that highlights the psychedelic science and what's going on in the field at UW-Madison, or I should say at Madison, near the UW-Madison campus. That's an opportunity for for academics from across the country and industry to come together to learn and share. That's another opportunity where PPI students and alums can get together to learn, to network, and to just create community within the space, which is a really exciting opportunity. And finally, if we go down to the individual level, I acknowledge and recognize that every single student is different. And because of that, my goal is to really meet you where you are. I'm going to work with you to create a job search plan based on your location and geographic area, your interest, and other individual factors, such as your undergraduate major. I want to help students incorporate PPI coursework into your existing skills and previous education so you have a plan throughout the program so you know where you're going to go after graduation. I do want to emphasize that we're not a placement agency. We're going to give you the tools to succeed at each of these three levels within the program, but you will be the one to apply for jobs, you'll be the one to interview, and you'll be the one that ultimately succeeds. My hope is that our program, through all of our offerings, can give you the tools to be successful in that job search. So next, I'm going to talk briefly about the philosophy I have, and I think our greater program philosophy in terms of preparing graduates. So I really think about this in the space of when I work with students, what is your undergraduate, your foundational education, and your foundational skill set? That's what's on the left there. That's that kind of what you bring to the program already. And then my goal is to help you mix with the psychedelic industry. And on the right is just a new wire map of the greater industry mapping with different kind of areas and buckets within the psychedelic space. So a way to think about this is combining what you've already learned and done and the skills you have, and how can that incorporate within the psychedelic industry space using the PPI program and the skills and courses you're gaining as a platform. We've had a lot of discussions recently within the program about thinking, avatars. So your undergraduate major may be bucketed for chemistry. Then I'd work with you on developing your resume and skill set to do CNS drug development, for an example. And then we'd look at the drug development bucket and figure out the best organizations or best jobs. So I understand each student is unique, but we do have tools that kind of help you figure out where you fit in within the psychedelic space. So next, I'm going to talk briefly about the PPI Summer Internship Program and a little bit more about our growing job opportunities. I mentioned the program, the internship program. That includes roles in a variety of psychedelic realms. I recognize that all of our students are different from different backgrounds, so I really want to make sure that we're having a broad list of opportunities for students within what's reasonable in terms of who's hiring. Here you'll see a sampling of roles as well as organizations who have offered internships previously. Obviously, note that this won't be the same case every year over year, but this gives you a general idea of who's hiring our students just for our internship program. As you can see, it ranges from drug development to education to therapy to legal to research. And our program will build on those previous educations that I mentioned that you have and supplement that within the PPI curriculum. And again, these change yearly, but my goal every year is to have a nice mix of options across dimensions. And that also includes location, job type, background skills that are demanded, and industry within the psychedelics. Lastly, I do want to, sorry, if we could go back real quick. Sorry about that. Perfect, thank you. I do want to mention the very bottom, our current focus on the year-round opportunities. We spent the first few years of our program growing and establishing our partnerships and this internship program. And now that we've got a nice foundation within the PPI program and organizations know who we are, what we do, and this kind of students and graduates that we offer, my goal in the last year has really been to ramp up opportunities and efforts for full-time roles, specifically for our graduates. And this primarily happens in a few ways. First is my individual outreach efforts through student feedbacks, research, and I speak with students constantly. I always have conversations about where the industry is headed. I hope they can learn from me, but I also try to learn from them. I also spend quite a bit of time researching on things like psychedelic alpha, LinkedIn, connecting with employers, and sharing our program. So that way they know who we are, so they know when they need an intern or need full-time help, we'll be there with some PPI graduates. And the second thing I do is really making a point to attend relevant conferences to forge partnership. I mentioned how our programs had a booth and attended Psychedelic Science 2025 in Denver this past summer. That's a really great opportunity for me to connect with employers who are hiring. And we've made quite a few of partnerships and furthermore internship opportunities through some of those opportunities at conferences. So my goal is to really create as many opportunities and being as broad as possible. And it's something I'm going to look forward to continuing in the next year or two. I also want to spend just a brief amount of time talking about graduate outcomes. So now that we're transitioning conversation from just our internship program, thinking about what's out there once you graduate. I will say a good amount of our students who do an internship through our program, they get a full-time offer. Not saying they have to accept, but we do have quite a bit of success for employers seeing the quality of our internships and wanting to keep them on full-time. Separately from our internships that's transitioned to full-time, here are some opportunities you'll see that our students have accepted for recent graduates. I believe all of these were acceptances from the class of 2025 survey data. You can see they range quite a bit of research, whether that's research technologist or research coordinator. We also have things like regulatory affairs manager, business and operations director, data scientist, integration specialist, and clinic operations manager. And I think that's a good example of that broad mix of types of positions you can do once you graduate that I mentioned a little bit earlier. And it's also a broad mix of organizations that you can actually get positions with, whether it's research at UW-Madison, the Medical College of Wisconsin, just for two examples, or other organizations such as Compass Pathways or Exponents. A little bit about our alumni outcome data. Caveat, I really want to emphasize that this is all based on the class of 2025 postgraduate outcome data. I send a survey every single year, and so that gets updated late summer each year. So what you'll see now is based on the class of 2024 all the way through May 2025 graduates. So our first graduating class was around 2023. And since that time, we've grown from about 5 graduates in the first class, and now we're totaling over 85 alums. So that's a pretty good chunk of alums we have spread throughout the country. That includes places like in the Northeast, whether that's New York, places in the West Coast, California, Oregon, Toronto, Louisiana, other places that kind of have pockets spread out. Obviously, the bulk are going to be in the Madison surrounding area for a few reasons. The first is that a lot of our students in the PPI program choose to do the hybrid option, so they choose to be in Madison at least for a portion of their experience, but it's also a hub for psychedelic research. We have organizations, whether it's USONA, UW-Madison, Capital Ketamine, a lot of them hire UW-Madison graduates, so it's just a nice place for our students to kind of go once they graduate. Plus, Madison's great. As a Badger alum, I'm obviously biased, but Madison is a wonderful place to begin their career, so it's not surprising that a majority spend their time in Madison surrounding area once they graduate, but it's certainly not a requirement. We currently have about 80 enrolled in the MS program, and I do want to mention again, the class of 2024 to 2025, that mean salary is just based on those who took the class of 2025 survey. So lastly, I want to talk real briefly about events and opportunities that are outside of just the PPI program. So while we give you ample opportunities to engage with employers, you'll also be part of the greater UW-Madison community. And that's pretty great because that gives you access to opportunities and resources available to UW-Madison students and graduates. UW hosts 2 campus-wide fairs yearly, one in the fall and one in the spring, that are big, hundreds of employers, usually at the Cole Center, as well as smaller, more specialized fairs in schools by majors and interest. I mentioned the Psychedelic Symposium, the UW-Madison Transdisciplinary Center for Research in Psychoactive Substances. It's a mouthful, I know, but we host a Psychedelic Symposium, and that brings together community engagement approaches, scientific and clinical work being performed in the field at UW, as well as featuring nationally renowned keynote speakers. We also, for the first time this past November, incorporated a networking opportunity where students in the PPI program had a brief opportunity to connect and network with speakers and sponsors, which was a really great way for, again, students to just learn a little bit more about the field. We also got a few internship opportunities based on that opportunity as well. Also, global companies offer events like information sessions and site visits for all of UW. So you'll have access to go to those as a UW student. And in addition to the events, being part of the UW community gives you access and resources to aid in your internship and job search. I'm biased. I think I'm a great resource to help with your job search, but I'm certainly not the only tool you should be using. Things like Handshake, which is UW's internal job board, and that's exclusive to students and alums, as well as Badgers getting access to Going Global, which is international job and internship listings, and Big Interview, which prepares you for interviews through sample interview questions, recording, and you get to watch it. I also want to point out beyond graduate school access, that's a career development resource specifically for master's students. And they usually have 5 to 6 seminars and workshops a year where they cover things like LinkedIn, resumes, networking, the hidden jobs market, and the hidden job search. So things that I talk about too, but it's always good to have kind of another eye and another perspective on things. And again, that's only for master's students. So you have a ton of resources at your disposal, not just through our program, but being part of the UW-Madison community. And the last point, Badger Bridge, UW-Madison alumni. That is the Wisconsin Alumni Association's alumni tool. So you'll have access to tap into some UW-Madison graduate talent for things like informational interview and help you kind of navigate. The last thing I want to say is that you're now a member of a network of hundreds of thousands of current and former Badger graduates, And badgers love helping fellow badgers. My coworkers are tired of me saying this, but I truly believe that badgers have your back. So being part of UW is great, not just because of the program resources, but because you have a global wealth of knowledge at your disposal who are usually pretty open and quick to offer a hand when you need help in your job search. And with that, I will take it back to
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. That was really informative and exciting to see where our graduates have landed. So if you are thinking that you would like to learn more about the program, application process, go ahead and connect with me. My information is on the screen here. We also have a few, um, actually a lot of YouTube videos that are great resources for you to look at, including student interviews, um, alumni interviews, as well as any program overview as well. Upcoming application deadlines for PPI. Just wanted to let you know that May 31st is for the master's application for a fall 2026 start. For the capstone, the application deadline is June 30th. And then if you are thinking about starting in spring 2027, which sounds very far off, but it's actually not, those are due for the master's September 30th, and then the capstone is October 31st.